I never thought my own birthday would end with the basement door slamming shut behind me. It was my 75th birthday. I wore the blue dress Henry always loved, the one he said matched my eyes. I even put on my pearls, dabbed a little blush, and made my way downstairs hoping to hear a cheerful surprise. Instead, I heard the awkward laughter of my daughter Melissa coming from the dining room. I stepped forward to join them, but before I could cross the threshold, Melissa blocked me. She smiled, too sweet to be real. "Just go down for a minute, Mom. I'll call you when it's time." Like a fool, I obeyed. I walked halfway down the stairs. And then, slam, the door above me shut like a trap. I stood there frozen, gripping the handrail. Darkness, dust, the hum of the old boiler. Upstairs, laughter rose like steam from a pot. I could hear champagne glasses clinking. I heard Melissa's voice say, "Oh, my mom," with her strange old war stories and blackout tales. Who wants to hear that at a dinner party? My stories, my memories, my life. I stood in that cold basement for hours. No chair, no window. Just the creaking of the pipes and the occasional burst of laughter filtering down through the floorboards. They were celebrating, eating, toasting, and I was buried alive. Finally, well past 10 o'clock, the door opened. Melissa stepped down the stairs with a plate in her hand. On it sat a single cupcake with a sad little candle. "Everyone's gone," she said without looking me in the eye. "You didn't have to be so dramatic." "Dramatic?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She shoved the cupcake toward me. "Here's your cake. Don't say I forgot you." I had raised this girl alone after her father died in '92. Worked 2 jobs so she could take ballet. Cooked her favorite lasagna that very morning. And now, I was nothing more than a liability. A woman to be hidden. She turned on her heel and walked back up the stairs, leaving me standing there, cupcake in hand. I climbed up slowly, knees aching, dignity shredded. When I reached my recliner, I sat in silence. But something inside me had changed. Something broke, and something else ignited. Because did they really think I'd stay quiet? That night, as I ate that dry, lonely cupcake, I knew, this wouldn't be another sad old woman's story. No, this was the beginning of something much bigger. A quiet war. A legal one. Sharp, clean, deliberate. And as Henry used to say, with that twinkle in his eye, the one who laughs last, laughs best. By the time Melissa let me out of that basement, the party was long over. The dishes were already soaking in the sink. The empty wine bottles lined the counter like trophies. She didn't even look up when I stepped into the kitchen, just tossed a dishcloth over her shoulder and said, "You made such a big deal out of nothing." I didn't say a word. My legs were still shaking from standing on cold concrete for hours. She handed me the plate like she was doing me a favor. "Here, I saved you a cupcake." It was the same one. Half smashed now. The candle crooked, wick burned black. Then she actually laughed. "You always overreact, Mom. You've been weird lately, you know that?" That word, weird, landed hard. Like I was some ghost she couldn't wait to get rid of. I took the cupcake and sat in my old recliner, the same chair Henry used to nap in every Sunday after church. My hands trembled as I placed the plate in my lap. The candle rolled off and hit the floor. Melissa didn't even notice. She was too busy texting. She had told me she was taking care of me. That moving in was just temporary. But the locks on the bedroom door said otherwise. The grocery money I never saw again. The way she snapped at me whenever I asked a question. It wasn't caregiving. It was control. I looked around my own living room and realized, this didn't feel like my house anymore. It felt like a stage set. And I was the old prop someone had forgotten to toss. Melissa finally turned to me and said, "You need to rest more. You've been acting confused, staring off into space." Confused? I wasn't the confused one. I was the invisible one. I thought of the lasagna I'd made that morning, her favorite. With fresh basil from the little pot I keep on the windowsill. I'd even layered extra cheese, just how she liked it. She didn't eat a single bite. Didn't say thank you. Didn't even mention it. I stared down at that cupcake and felt something harden in my chest. Not sadness. Not even anger. Resolve. If I said anything now, she'd just twist it. Blame it on my age, or memory, or some vague nonsense about stress. She wanted me quiet, dependent, small. So that night, I stayed quiet. But I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat awake in Henry's old chair, watching the flickering light from the hallway seep under the door. And in that silence, I made a promise to myself. If she was going to treat me like I didn't matter, I'd start gathering proof. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, in the quiet, trying to remember when my daughter stopped seeing me as a mother, and started seeing me as a burden. I raised Melissa on my own after Henry died in 1992. She was only 10. We had nothing. No savings, no house, just a rented apartment with brown shag carpet and a leaky faucet that never got fixed. I took a job cleaning offices at night and another one folding clothes at the department store during the day. And still, every Thursday, I scraped together the $10 for her ballet class. She loved it, said she felt like flying. I'd sit on the floor outside the studio, sore from work, watching through the little window in the door. She used to run out after class and jump into my arms. "Did you see me, Mom?" I always did. Now she tells her friends I'm slipping, that I forget things, or say strange stuff. She says it like I'm not even in the room. The worst part? I still wake up early to make her breakfast. Still fold her towels the way she likes. Still make her favorite meals. Just that morning, I'd spent 2 hours making her lasagna, her childhood comfort food. And she threw it away like it was nothing. Not a word of thanks. Not even a glance. When she thinks I'm not listening, I hear her joke about me. She gets confused. Probably dementia. One of her friends laughed and said, "Better get that will signed soon." They all laughed. But I didn't. Because I remember everything. I remember the day Melissa broke her arm falling off the monkey bars, and I sat up with her all night in the hospital. I remember saving for months to buy her first computer for college. I remember when she got that rejection letter and cried for hours, and I told her she was still brilliant. But she doesn't remember any of that. To her, I'm just the woman who forgets where she put the remote. Just the lady who's losing it. And yet, every month, she takes my pension card to do the shopping. Every week, she asks for gas money. And every time something breaks in her car, I'm the one who pays. I don't mind giving. What hurts is that I've become invisible in the process. I used to think love meant sacrifice. Now I wonder if it just made me easier to use. And as I sat in that chair, with her words still echoing in my ears, I realized I didn't need to prove anything to her. But I did need to protect myself. 3 days later, I was dusting Henry's old desk when I found it, an old smartphone, tucked behind a stack of yellowed receipts and faded birthday cards. It was his backup phone. I'd forgotten all about it. The charger was still in the drawer, tangled with paper clips and rubber bands. I plugged it in, not expecting much, but the screen flickered to life like it had been waiting for me all along. And just like that, an idea began to take shape. If Melissa was telling people I was unstable, maybe it was time to start documenting things. Not for revenge, not even for justice, just for the truth. That night, I left the phone recording during dinner. It sat quietly inside the centerpiece basket on the table, half buried beneath cloth napkins and a plastic tulip. I barely said a word that evening. Melissa didn't even notice. But her fiancé, Tyler, came over, and that's when I heard it. They were sitting across from me, talking like I was a coat rack in the corner. I sat there, silent, staring at my plate while the phone recorded every word. "She's not right," Melissa said, tearing a piece of garlic bread. "She asked me 3 times if today was Sunday. Like, does she even know where she is?" Tyler chuckled. "Sounds like it's getting worse. She talks to the microwave," she added, rolling her eyes. "I mean, it's sad, but also exhausting." I hadn't said a word to the microwave. I'd been reading the buttons because my glasses were dirty. But the truth didn't matter. What mattered was the story she was spinning. I felt my hand tremble under the table. Not from shock, but from recognition. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was strategy. And if she was going to treat me like a problem, then I was going to become a problem worth fearing. Later that night, I played the recording back with the volume low, making notes in the little notebook I kept inside my pillowcase. Henry used to call it my storm journal because I always wrote in it when something felt off. I wrote, "They're building a case against me. But I'm building one, too." It wasn't about winning yet. It was about not disappearing. The next morning, I slipped the phone into my purse and took the early bus to Judith's house. Judith's been my friend for over 30 years. We met in the church choir back when our knees still worked and our husbands were still alive. She's one of the few people I trust with my full truth and my silences. We sat in her sunny kitchen, sipping coffee from those same chipped mugs we've used for years. The smell of cinnamon toast filled the room. I pulled out the phone and said, "I need you to listen to something." She turned the volume down low, and we leaned in. We listened to the recording from dinner. Melissa's voice, Tyler's laugh, the way she mocked me, made me sound like a confused old ghost floating through her house. When it ended, Judith sat back in her chair, her face pale. Her hands were clenched around the coffee mug. "Marge," she said, slowly, "this is elder abuse. You know that, right?" I shook my head. "I don't know what to call it. I just know it hurts." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand, her grip firm, like she was anchoring me back to reality. "It's not just hurtful. It's wrong. And it's dangerous." I looked out the window for a long moment. A bluebird landed on the fence. I used to believe signs meant something. "I'm not ready to confront her," I said. "But I'm also not ready to disappear." Judith nodded. "Then don't disappear. Document everything. Every word. Every bruise to your pride. Every locked door." I felt something shift inside me. Not rage. Not fear. Just focus. That night, I took Henry's phone and set it up again. I nestled it deep inside the yarn basket next to my recliner. I left it running as Melissa walked past me, phone in hand, talking loudly about how hard it is living with someone who used to be sharp. Used to be. She has no idea who she's talking about. I'm not fading. I'm waking up. A week later, I put on my best sweater and went down to the community legal aid office. It was a quiet little building next to the library, with peeling paint on the door and the smell of old paper inside. The receptionist gave me a form and a kind smile, like she'd seen women like me before, scared, polite, on the edge of something big. They paired me with a young lawyer named Carla. She couldn't have been older than 30, but she had the kind of eyes that didn't flinch when someone told her the truth. I sat across from her, my hands folded in my lap, and said, "I think my daughter is trying to erase me." She didn't interrupt, didn't smile like I was being dramatic. She just said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the locked doors, the fake stories to friends, the way Melissa handled all the bank cards now. I told her how they laughed about me like I wasn't in the room. And then I pulled the phone from my purse. "I've been recording some of it," I said. "Just to keep a record." Carla took the phone, played the audio, and nodded slowly. "This is good. Really good. But I need you to keep going." "Going?" I asked. "More proof. Keep recording. Write down everything, times, dates, what was said. But don't confront her. Not yet. If she finds out, she might escalate." "Escalate?" I asked quietly. Carla leaned forward. "This isn't just emotional cruelty. If she's controlling your finances and manipulating how others perceive your health, this could be grounds for guardianship abuse." I nodded slowly, trying to keep my breathing steady. It all felt so strange, talking about my own child like this, like she was some stranger who'd broken into my life. But the truth was, I didn't recognize Melissa anymore. "She used to be sweet," I whispered. "I don't know what happened." Carla reached into her drawer and pulled out a folder. "She still might be sweet," she said. "But right now, she's dangerous." When I left the office, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly, but strategy. From that day forward, I made the phone my secret weapon. I tucked it deep into my knitting basket, the one Melissa never touched. I'd pretend to sort yarn while pressing record, then leave it open during conversations, meals, even those long silences where she'd forget I was still in the room. Every night, I reviewed the audio and wrote everything down in my storm journal. I dated each page, numbered each clip. It felt strange at first, like spying in my own home, but Carla was right. I needed proof, not just memories, not just bruised feelings, something solid. And oh, did I get it. One day I caught her on the phone with her cousin, laughing. She asked me if she had already eaten lunch, Melissa said. Like 5 times. I swear, I could tell her the moon was made of cheese and she'd believe it. Her cousin giggled. "Well, at least she's harmless, right?" Melissa's voice lowered. "Oh, she's not harmless. She still thinks she's in charge of her money. I've got access to everything now. All the passwords. She doesn't even know the checking account balance." I felt my stomach twist. That account had Henry's pension in it. Mine, too. The little we had left from a lifetime of work and sacrifice. Another day, she told Tyler, if she gets too weird, I'll just call the doctor and say she's not safe alone. Then we'll get everything officially under control. Control. That was the word she loved. I made copies of every file on a USB drive and hid it inside an old baking tin in the back of the pantry, behind the oatmeal I knew she'd never touch. I also started keeping a second notebook, more clinical, less emotional. Carla said it would help in court. What used to be my home had become a stage. And I was both actress and archivist. Each time Melissa passed by me without a glance, each time she whispered about my decline, she thought she was winning. But I was documenting. She thought I was fading. But I was recording. And when the time came, she'd hear her own voice tell the whole story. By early March, Melissa moved me out of my bedroom. She called it a safety measure, said the stairs were too much for me. But I knew the truth. She didn't want me seen during her dinner parties. She cleared out the laundry room, shoved a cot against the wall, and said, "You'll be more comfortable here." There were no windows, no privacy, just the smell of detergent and mildew, and a single bulb that flickered when the dryer ran. She even installed a lock on the outside of the door. "For your protection," she said, as if I were a toddler with a history of wandering. That night, I lay awake on the thin mattress, my knees aching, the washer humming like a cruel lullaby. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to the shadows, "This is what it's come to, Henry. Your wife locked away like a secret. It wasn't a room, it was a warning. She didn't say it, but I could hear it in her silence. You're not welcome here anymore. You're just tolerated." She didn't even let me keep my nightstand. But I kept something better. Inside my pillowcase, hidden deep behind the seams, I slipped in my notebook. Every night, I wrote what she said, what she did, times, dates, tone of voice, even what she served me for dinner, because yes, she had started plating my meals like I was in a care home. Once, she brought me dry toast and said, "That's all you really need now, isn't it?" I didn't answer, not out loud, but in my journal, I wrote, "Dry toast today. Her dignity tomorrow." I also began practicing my speech. Just a sentence here and there, into the mirror, into the air. My name is Margaret. I am of sound mind. My name is Margaret, and I am not confused. I am angry. No one saw me in that laundry room. But I saw myself, clearly. And for the first time in years, I began to believe I still had something left worth fighting for. The next time I visited Carla, she sat me down with a calm smile and said, "We're ready to file the protective order." My hands trembled slightly as I signed the paperwork. Carla explained we were also starting the guardianship revocation process. Melissa had no legal claim to control me, but if she tried to make one, we'd be ready. "There's just one more thing we need," Carla said, her voice gentle but firm. "Something visual. A video. Ideally, something recent." That night, I called Judith. Within 24 hours, we had a plan. Judith brought over a small nanny cam, one of those disguised as a tissue box. She placed it in the hallway, angled toward the living room where Melissa spent most of her time on the phone. "I feel like we're in a spy movie," Judith whispered with a nervous smile. "I feel like I'm finally doing something right," I said. It took less than 2 days. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Melissa was on a video call with a friend. She didn't know I was sitting around the corner, just out of view, knitting. Or pretending to, anyway. I heard her laugh. "Oh, she thinks I'm just being nice. You should see how she stares sometimes, like she's trying to remember who I am. It's hilarious. I do this little thing where I imitate her voice. And then she did it. Right there on camera. Mocked me. Twisted her face, dragged out her words like a cartoon of dementia. Even used my nickname, Maggie, like it was a joke. I didn't flinch. I just kept my hands moving over the yarn and listened, stone still. Later that night, I retrieved the memory card and played the clip for Judith. She didn't say a word. Just pressed her hand to her mouth. When we brought the footage to Carla, she nodded and said, "This is exactly what we needed." I walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in months. It wasn't over. Not yet. But the balance had shifted. I had evidence now, not just whispers in my head or scribbles in a notebook. She'd revealed herself. And soon, so would I. The doorbell rang at exactly 9 a.m. Melissa was still in her robe, coffee in hand, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even glance at me when she asked, "Are you expecting someone?" I didn't answer. I already knew who it was. Adult Protective Services. Carla had arranged the surprise home visit. 2 representatives, 1 man, 1 woman, stood at the door with clipboards and polite, unreadable faces. Melissa straightened her posture and offered a sugary smile. "Oh, come in, please. Would you like muffins? Coffee? We're just finishing breakfast." The woman replied, "We're fine, thank you. We're here to speak with Mrs. Margaret Reed." Melissa's smile flickered, just for a moment. "She's in the back. I'll get her." But I was already standing there. "I'm right here," I said, my voice steady. The 2 workers turned to me and introduced themselves. Then they asked if we could speak privately. Melissa looked stunned. I led them into the dining room. They asked me questions, simple ones, like my name, today's date, my address. Then deeper ones. How I manage my medications, who controls my finances, whether I feel safe in my home. I answered everything clearly, slowly, without hesitation. I even made them laugh once, told them Melissa's idea of dinner was dry toast and judgment. When they were done, they asked if they could look around the house. I said yes. Melissa followed them like a nervous shadow, offering cheerful commentary. "She's been struggling with memory lately. You know how it is at her age. We've been doing our best." The woman took photos of the laundry room, of the cot, of the lock on the door. They wrote it all down. Melissa tried to laugh it off. "That's just for safety. She forgets sometimes and wanders." "She does not," I said, from the hallway. They turned to look at me. Melissa did too. I held my ground. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, shoulders back, eyes steady. When they left, Melissa turned on me. "You think you're smarter than me now?" she hissed. I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because for the first time in months, I wasn't the one on the defensive. That night, back in the laundry room, I lay on the cot staring up at the ceiling tiles. They looked like cracked puzzle pieces, yellowed from years of steam and neglect. I used to think Melissa would come around. That if I loved her hard enough, helped her long enough, she'd remember who I was. That she'd look at me and see her mother, the woman who carried her through fevers, heartbreaks, lost jobs, and bad boyfriends. But that night, I finally admitted it to myself. She didn't see a mother. She saw a burden, a wallet, a complication to be managed. She had my house, my name on the bills, access to my bank accounts. Even my stories, she twisted them into jokes at parties. But the one thing she hadn't taken? My mind. I rolled over and whispered to the small photo of Henry the first kept hidden behind the detergent bottles. "She took everything, Henry, but she didn't take me." And just like that, the grief turned into steel. I'd been tiptoeing, gathering proof, following advice, keeping quiet. But now I was ready to end it. Not with screams, not with threats, but with action. I pulled my journal from the pillowcase and wrote 3 words on a fresh page. Finish this, now. The next morning, I called Carla and said, "I'm ready." She didn't ask what I meant. She just said, "Then let's move." We met at the courthouse 2 days later to file formal charges for elder abuse. Real, legal charges. The kind that leave paper trails and court dates and judges with gavels. Judith offered to let me stay with her if things turned ugly fast. I started packing that very night. Melissa didn't even notice. To her, I was still the same old woman in the laundry room. But I wasn't anymore. I was Margaret Reed. I was awake. And I was done being quiet. From that moment on, everything I did had purpose. Carla and I filed the formal elder abuse complaint and secured a court date. She said it would take a few weeks, but we had what we needed: audio, video, written records, and now, testimony from Adult Protective Services. The final piece was financial. We subpoenaed Melissa's banking activity connected to my accounts. Carla suspected she'd been using my funds for more than just groceries. Spa days, online orders, maybe even debt she hadn't told me about. I packed slowly, methodically, folding each item with care like I was preparing for a long vacation, one where I didn't have to walk on eggshells. Judith cleared out her guest room for me. "You'll have a proper bed," she said, "and no locks." That meant more to me than I could say. And all the while, I stayed quiet. I smiled. I made Melissa coffee in the mornings. I watched her scroll on her phone, legs up on the couch I bought. I said nothing, because people like her get sloppy when they think they've already won. And sloppy was exactly what she got. 2 nights before the court date, I was in the hallway, pretending to dust, when I heard her whispering on the phone. The walls are thin in old houses. I heard every word. I need the deed in your name by Friday, she said. If they freeze her assets, I'm screwed. I didn't breathe. She was talking to a friend, maybe a coworker, maybe a lawyer. She was trying to transfer the house title. My house. The one Henry and I bought together in 1983. The one with the magnolia tree out front that we planted the year Melissa was born. I hit record on the old phone inside the tissue box. Got the whole thing. I sent it to Carla within the hour. This isn't just abuse anymore, she said. This is real estate fraud. Suddenly, our case had teeth. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just packed the last of my sweaters and placed Henry's photo carefully on top. Because when someone tries to erase your name off your home, it stops being about love. It becomes survival. I always thought the worst she could do was ignore me. I was wrong. 2 days before the court hearing, Melissa tried to steal my house. That late-night phone call, her hushed voice, the panic, wasn't just a bad impulse. It was part of a plan. She'd contacted someone she trusted to take ownership of my property before the courts could intervene. Maybe she thought it was clever. Maybe she thought I'd never find out. But I'd recorded it all. I sent the audio to Carla within minutes. She called me back almost instantly, her voice firm and cold. This changes everything, Mrs. Reed. This isn't just about elder abuse anymore. This is attempted fraud. It's criminal. That word, criminal, echoed in my ears like thunder. We filed an emergency motion first thing the next morning. Carla moved to freeze all asset transfers linked to my name. We submitted the phone recording as evidence. The court approved it within hours. Melissa had no idea. That day, she was laughing in the kitchen, making coffee, scrolling through her phone like nothing had changed. I stood there in my sweater, watching her talk about weekend plans. She didn't even look up at me. I realized then, she still thought I was invisible. Still thought I was weak. Still thought I wouldn't fight. But by that point, I didn't need her to see me. I needed the judge to see her. That night, I packed the last box. Henry's old shaving kit, my storm journal, the USB drive. Judith picked me up at 6 a.m. the next morning. We didn't speak much on the ride to court. But when we pulled into the parking lot, I took a deep breath and whispered, "Let's finish this." And we would. Because the woman Melissa had locked in a basement, the one she mocked, humiliated, and erased, she'd underestimated her. And tomorrow, so would the court. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and tension. Melissa walked in beside me like nothing was wrong, heels clicking, makeup perfect, smile plastic. She even brought me a coffee, handed it to me with that fake concern she wore like perfume. "Wear something nice for court, Mom," she'd said that morning. "I'll help you get ready." I looked her dead in the eye. "I'll dress myself." She blinked, thrown off just for a second. Then smiled again, like she was the victim in all this. But once we sat down in that courtroom, the mask began to crack. The judge was a tall woman with silver hair and tired eyes. Carla stood up first and presented our evidence, audio, video, the financial records. The recordings played aloud, echoing through the courtroom like thunder. Melissa's voice, laughing. Melissa's voice, mocking. Melissa's voice, whispering about the deed transfer. Each word hit the air like a slap. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just sat with my back straight and my eyes forward. Melissa's fiancé, Tyler, turned pale in the gallery. And when the judge asked Melissa if she had anything to say in response, she finally broke. Tears. Shaking hands. "It was taken out of context," she said. "I was overwhelmed. She's been unstable, forgetful. I was trying to help her." "I didn't mean, you attempted to transfer the deed of her home," the judge interrupted, voice sharp. "Without her knowledge or consent. That is not forgetfulness. That is fraud." Melissa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Carla didn't even need to say much after that. The judge looked over the documentation one final time, then turned to me. "Mrs. Reed, are you aware of your surroundings and capable of making your own financial and legal decisions?" I answered clearly. "My name is Margaret Reed. I'm 75 years old. I've paid every bill in this house for 40 years. And yes, Your Honor, I'm more capable now than I've ever been." There was silence in the room. Then the judge nodded. Motion granted. All rights restored. Guardianship petition denied. And just like that, I had my life back. The courtroom emptied slowly, people murmuring as they passed. Melissa sat on the bench, mascara streaking down her face. Tyler wouldn't even look at her. Her hands trembled as she gathered her purse. I didn't approach her. I didn't need to. But as I stepped through the courthouse doors into the crisp morning air, I heard her behind me. "You ruined my life," she shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. I turned. Not with fury. Not with fire. Just quiet, clean steel. "No, Melissa," I said. "You ruined mine. I just stopped letting you." She looked stunned, like a child caught red-handed, still expecting sympathy. Then her face twisted with rage. "You think this is over?" she screamed. "You think you've won?" She hurled her phone at the wall. It shattered with a crack that echoed down the hallway. Court security moved in immediately. The officers who'd stood at the back during the hearing now stepped forward without hesitation. Melissa tried to back away, her voice rising, frantic. "I didn't do anything. She's manipulating all of you." But they didn't listen. They arrested her on the spot, for attempted fraud and unlawful confinement. Tyler stepped aside, shaking his head as they led her away. I stood there, silent. Judith placed a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded. "I'm not shaking anymore." As the squad car pulled away, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean, clear. Melissa wasn't a monster. She was my daughter. But she'd chosen control over care. And I had chosen dignity over silence. The world wouldn't know our whole story. They'd read a few lines in the paper, maybe. But I knew what this was. This was the moment I stopped apologizing for surviving. This was the day I stopped shrinking to keep someone else comfortable. By the end of the week, it was official. The court restored all control of my finances and property. Melissa's name was removed from every account. The locks on my house were changed. The power of attorney she'd tried to sneak through? Voided. I was free. Free in every way that mattered. Judith helped me move the last of my things into her guest room. The room smelled like lavender and lemon oil. The bed had soft sheets. There were no locks on the door. I stood in the middle of the room and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. That night, I slept the whole way through. No noise. No shouting. No muffled laughter behind my back. Just peace. The next morning, over coffee, Judith handed me the local paper. There, buried in the second section, was a short article, "Woman arrested for elder fraud and confinement in ongoing investigation." They didn't print our names. But everyone who needed to know, knew. Melissa's fiancé, Tyler, moved out of her apartment the same day. Judith's cousin had seen him packing up his car, boxes piled high, face like stone. Judith looked over her mug and said, "You did it, Marge." I shook my head. We did it, and I meant that. Because when you've been silenced long enough, speaking up feels like an act of rebellion. And when someone finally believes you, it feels like coming up for air. Melissa spent 2 nights in jail before posting bail. Carla told me she was looking at probation, mandatory counseling, maybe even restitution. She said the fraud charge would be hard to shake, especially with the deed transfer attempt. I didn't ask for revenge. I just wanted my life back. And now, bit by bit, I was getting it. I took a walk that afternoon, alone. No one following me. No one questioning if I was safe. I bought myself a slice of cake from the bakery near the park and sat on a bench beneath the trees. A couple walked past with a baby stroller, laughing. A breeze tugged at my sleeves. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like a person again. Not a prop. Not a burden. Not someone waiting to be erased. Just me. It's been 6 weeks since the hearing. I now live full-time in Judith's guest room. The bed is firm, the window lets in morning light, and no one locks me in or mocks the way I speak. I joined a quilting group at the community center. Every Thursday, a group of women, some widowed, some divorced, all weathered by life, sit in a circle and stitch. We talk about books, about aches and pains, about sons who call too little and daughters who want too much. Nobody treats me like I'm invisible there. Sometimes, when the room is quiet and the needles click softly, I realize I'm not angry anymore, not in the way I was. I still think about Melissa, of course. How could I not? She was my baby once. I remember her in pigtails, chasing fireflies in the yard. I remember her crawling into bed with me after Henry died, whispering, "Don't be sad, Mommy." That version of her feels like a stranger now. But I've forgiven her, in my heart, at least. I had to. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about taking the hook out of your own chest so you can breathe again. Carla still checks in on me. She calls once a week just to ask how I'm doing. She says the case has helped others, more women coming forward, more voices being heard. Judith teases that I've become a quiet little legend. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just someone who finally stopped waiting to be rescued. On my 76th birthday, Judith invited the quilting group over. They brought cake and tea and silly cards with glitter that got everywhere. When the candles were lit, everyone clapped. I closed my eyes. I didn't wish for anything. I didn't have to. When I blew out the candles, I whispered, not for anyone else to hear, just for me, for the first time in years. I'm free. I think a lot about the word legacy these days. Not money, not houses or heirlooms, but truth. What do we leave behind when the lights go out and the voices fade? I used to believe my legacy was Melissa, that everything I poured into her would carry forward. But people aren't vessels. Sometimes they spill what you give them. Sometimes they smash it. So now, my legacy is choice. That I chose to speak. That I chose to rise, even when it would have been easier, safer, not to. I keep my journals tucked neatly on a shelf beside my bed now. Labeled, dated, not hidden anymore. One day, when I'm gone, someone will read them. Maybe they'll see what survival looks like with soft hands and a steady spine. Maybe they'll say, she didn't vanish. She decided to stay. Peace doesn't come with fanfare. It comes in the quiet. In the sound of the kettle whistling. In Judith humming as she folds laundry. In knowing no one is watching your every move, waiting to twist it into weakness. Last Sunday, I planted tulips in Judith's garden, red, white, and yellow. I haven't touched soil in years, not since Melissa moved in and said, "You'll hurt your back." Funny how I never once heard it digging for something real. Now I spend my mornings watering them. They're not blooming yet, but I know they will. Things take time, even trust, even joy. Sometimes I sit on the porch and write letters I'll never send. To Melissa, to Henry, to myself, 10 years ago, begging her not to give up. I tell her, hold on. You don't know it yet, but you will rise. You will reclaim your name. And she always answers the same, I believe you. I've stopped asking why she did it, why she changed, why love sometimes curdles into something sharp and selfish. Those questions used to keep me awake. Now, I let them pass through me like wind through curtains, noticed, but no longer held. Because I've learned that power doesn't always look like noise. Sometimes it looks like a woman sitting quietly, unbothered, unmoved, finally whole. Power is knowing you don't have to convince anyone of your worth ever again. Power is choosing softness without surrender. Last week, I walked past my old house. Just once. Just to see it. The magnolia tree is still there. The paint's a little chipped. The curtains are drawn. But I didn't cry. I didn't linger. I just kept walking, because that place no longer holds me. I do. And I always will. Zagolovak on her birthday, my daughter locked me in the basement, saying I'd embarrass her. When I finally got out, I made one call. Weeks later, she was the one behind cold bars, tasting the fear she once gave me.